They say some stories fade with time, but others linger. Stories of places so dark, so haunted, that even decades later, the whispers have never stopped. Tonight, we step inside three of America's most chilling hauntings, tales that refuse to die. It began in West Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. The year was 1974. The Smurl family thought they had found the perfect home at 109 Orange Street, a charming two-story beauty nestled in the town's embrace. Newly married and ready to start a life together, Helen and George Smurl brought their two young sons into what they hoped would be their forever home. But they had no idea that they were about to unleash an unspeakable horror, a haunting so profound and terrifying that it would not only tear their family apart, but also shake the very foundations of their faith and sanity. For the first few months, the house appeared to be nothing more than a beautiful abode with its share of creaks and quirks. It was a typical old house. But as the seasons turned and the shadows grew longer, so did the darkness within the house's walls. Subtle at first, then increasingly malevolent, unseen forces began to stir. Doors slammed shut on their own. Unexplainable scratches and bruises marred their bodies, and whispers brushed against their ears, even when no one else was present. As weeks turned into months and the eerie incidents escalated, the small, quaint house on Orange Street became a battleground of the supernatural, each room echoing with the clash between good and evil. In the quiet of the night, they heard footsteps pacing back and forth on the second floor. Voices, guttural and menacing, seemed to slither through the halls, taunting them with unintelligible threats. One moment they would hear the thump of a book hitting the floor, and upon investigation, find it lying open on the table untouched. Another time they would wake to the chilling melody of a music box, yet no one could find the source of the tune. The idyllic home had become a labyrinth of fear. Fear etched into their faces, Helen and George began seeking answers, reaching out to priests who blessed the house, to friends who offered support, and eventually to paranormal investigators who documented their terrifying ordeal. One particularly horrifying incident involved their youngest son, and it serves as a stark reminder of the depths of darkness they faced. The boy had wandered into the basement alone and was playing when suddenly he was knocked off his feet. Unable to move, he cried out for help. Upon hearing his screams, Helen rushed to the basement and found him paralyzed, unable to speak. The boy recounted what happened to him, describing a terrifying force that pinned him to the ground. And from that day on, he bore the mark of that trauma, forever changed by the events in the basement of that house. The investigation uncovered a history of tragedy and turmoil that had stained the house's past. Former occupants had experienced similar horrors, their stories weaving a tapestry of terror that reached back decades. As time went on, the haunting only intensified, making the house on Orange Street one of the most infamous haunted houses in history. Leaving the house behind, the Smurls tried to piece their lives back together, but the trauma lingered, casting long shadows over their futures. Their story served as a grim testament to the fact that some houses are not just homes, but portals to unimaginable horrors. And if you think that was scary, wait until you see what happens in the middle of nowhere in the next segment. Fast forward to Pittsburgh, 1988. A man named Bob Cronmer moved his family into what seemed like a dream home at 236 Brownsville Road. Nestled away from the city, it had the space and tranquility his family craved. Little did they know they were about to become part of a terrifying local legend. As soon as they stepped foot inside, their happiness started to unravel. The joy of the new home was quickly overshadowed by a pervasive feeling of dread. It wasn't just the unsettling ambience. There were inexplicable occurrences that made their blood run cold. Doors swung open and slammed shut without a breath of wind. Whispers echoed through the halls, though no one was there. Then there were the inexplicable bruises and scratches that suddenly appeared on their skin. But the true depth of their misfortune was revealed when a neighbor shared a chilling tale. What they were experiencing was not uncommon for the house on Brown Street. The neighbor explained that she and her husband had lived there previously, enduring similar horrors before fleeing in terror. Bob didn't heed the warning, thinking it was just an old wives' tale. However, things took a turn for the worse. Their 8-year-old daughter began seeing things no child should ever witness. Toys moved on their own, shaking and rattling as if possessed. Furniture overturned, sending shivers down their spines. And apparitions of tormented souls glided through their vision, leaving them breathless with fear. One night they heard footsteps above their heads, although no one was home except for them. Days turned into weeks, and the paranormal activity intensified. Guests who entered the home burst into tears, overwhelmed by an oppressive energy that seemed to feed on their fear. Bob's wife found solace in religion, praying fervently for deliverance. But the house seemed to mock their pleas. It was as if an evil entity thrived on their torment. Unable to withstand the oppressive atmosphere any longer, the family contacted religious leaders and paranormal investigators. Priests came to bless the home, but their rituals were met with violent resistance. Books flew, lights flickered ominously, and one priest even claimed to be touched by a cold skeletal hand. Through their investigations, they learned of the house's dark history. It had been a site of unspeakable atrocities, and the spirits trapped within sought to make their presence known. Despite the terror, Bob remained defiant, determined to reclaim his home. He fought back against the entity, engaging in heated arguments, challenging it to reveal itself. However, as time passed, the struggle took its toll. The family fractured under the strain of constant fear and the weight of the unseen presence. Finally, after years of relentless haunting, they made the heartbreaking decision to abandon their home. They left behind all their possessions, fleeing from the suffocating grip of the house on their lives. Bob once said, "You don't buy a haunted house. The house buys you." And for those who entered 236 Brownsville Road, that nightmare never ends. And now our final haunting in today's video. And then there is Hinsdale, New York. The year was 1975, when the Fairchild family moved into a seemingly idyllic little white farmhouse at 101 White Schoolhouse Road in Hinsdale, New York. With its charming exterior and sprawling grounds, the house promised a peaceful retreat from the chaos of city life. But little did they know, they were about to awaken a nightmare that had lain dormant within the walls for decades. From the moment they stepped inside, the air grew heavy with an oppressive energy that chilled them to the bone. Laughter echoed from empty rooms. Unseen footsteps paced the halls, and whispers brushed against their ears like ghostly murmurs. The isolation of the house was only amplified by the sense of being watched, stalked by an unseen presence that thrived on their fear. As the days passed, the paranormal activity escalated, turning their dream home into a living nightmare. Doors slammed shut, rattling the walls with their violence. Heavy objects moved, crashing to the floor with bone-jarring force. And the apparition of a faceless woman in Victorian nightgown could often be seen gliding through the windows, her mournful eyes staring blankly into the distance. To make matters worse, the family soon discovered that they were not alone in their plight. A neighbor revealed a chilling tale of a former resident who had been driven insane by the house as supernatural torment. Before the town's founding, strange rituals had been conducted on the very land where the house stood, leaving an indelible mark on its soil. Desperate for relief, the family reached out to religious authorities who performed exorcisms and blessings, hoping to cleanse the house of its evil. Yet the haunting only grew stronger, as if the entity within mocked their efforts to subdue it. The family struggled, torn between the desire for a peaceful life and the relentless terror that plagued them. Their sanctuary had become a prison, their refuge a battleground. Finally, unable to bear the oppressive darkness that permeated every corner of their home, the family fled, abandoning their possessions and leaving behind the secrets of 101 White Schoolhouse Road. So I ask you, would you dare step inside?